NVIDIA just reported earnings, and we can see after hours, the stock is up roughly 7%. The company beat earnings. They also gave some crazy guidance. On today's episode, I just want to do a quick overview of their overall earnings and the press release that they just announced. Later today or later tomorrow, I am going to take a closer look at their earnings call and more importantly, the Q&A session. So if you guys don't know, this is the best place where you can find semiconductor news, especially here on YouTube, #1 semiconductor channel out here, and we definitely follow NVIDIA a nice amount. So let's take a closer look in today's episode. So right off the bat, I actually want to jump in to see what analysts were expecting today. So in earnings per share, they were expecting somewhere around $2.09. And for overall revenue, they were expecting roughly $11.1 billion in revenue. And we can kind of take a close look right off the bat from the company's results. Revenue was $13.5 billion. So huge beat there. Non-GAAP earnings per share were $2.70. So again, a huge beat on both earnings and revenue. Now, another thing that I wanted to take a closer look at was what analysts were expecting for the next quarter. For the current quarter, which is now what we're in right now, analysts are expecting somewhere between $12.4 billion on average. If we take a closer look at the results, NVIDIA guided for a $16 billion quarter. So they completely blew the waters on both guidance and both revenue and both earnings. Again, today I want to take a closer look at some great information that we have here. So let's go on. So I highlighted a lot of information. Record revenue, right? $13.5 billion, up 88% from quarter one and up 101% from a year ago. If we take a closer look at their guidance or kind of their breakdown in revenue, we can see most of that revenue is coming from the data center market. We know thanks to AI, their products like the H100 and their A100 are in high demand. The company actually guided for $11 billion for this quarter. And I think it's insane that just this company almost beat that guidance with data center market itself, which made up roughly $10.3 billion. We can see the second biggest segment is the gaming, which is roughly 2.5. I'm also super excited of how quickly this is rising again. We can see now this is actually up on a year-over-year basis after kind of both this crypto boom kind of deflated, and we also kind of saw these over inventory corrections. So we are seeing strong growth here in the gaming market. They do also talk about kind of that during the quarter, major cloud server providers announced massive NVIDIA H100 AI infrastructures. As we know, that's the main reason why this company is seeing such huge demand is for their AI market, for their H100 and A100 products. Kind of talking, the company did mention about shareholder repurchase. They returned roughly $3.4 billion to shareholders, mainly in forms of dividend, roughly 3.3 in dividend and roughly 7.5 million in share repurchase. What I thought was interesting, the company did mention that they added additionally 25, you heard that, $25 billion in share repurchase without expiration. And NVIDIA plans to continue share repurchases this fiscal year. So I find this pretty interesting, right? The company is now at all-time highs, right? Sitting at over $1 trillion. Right now, the stock is up over 7%. They barely bought any shares right now. So why would they buy up if they expect kind of stock prices to continue to go up? So this one's pretty interesting to me, unless they're just kind of holding that cash or just want to kind of, in case there's ever kind of a massive dip in the market, NVIDIA has that kind of approval already to kind of go guns blazing on repurchasing shares.
Finally, I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
Some other information that I want to discuss in today's episode, and like I mentioned, this is more going to be a quick overview. Just my initial thoughts is gross margins. Look, gross margins were 71.2%. It was up over 4.4 percentage point versus a quarter ago, and last quarter was pretty strong. The main reason these gross margins are increasing is obviously data center products tend to have higher margins. Obviously, anything with AI is selling like hotcakes, so they're definitely making that money, and we can kind of see it in their gross margins. The company announced numerous great solutions in the data centers this quarter. Obviously, the GH200, which is the Grace Hopper super chip, they announced that this quarter they are already sending the first generation, and they already announced a second generation, which HBM3E memory is expected to ship within quarter two of calendar of 2024. They also announced the NVIDIA L40S GPU. I've talked about that a lot in previous episodes, but a great way to kind of get rid of maybe some of the inventory they might have in kind of their consumer chips and kind of sell it as a premium product. So overall, off the bat, things look pretty good. I also wanted to take a closer look at their CFO commentary. I do believe there's a lot more information there. Data center revenue, like we saw, 171% up from a year ago, 141% up sequentially, led by cloud server providers and large consumer internet companies. Strong demand for NVIDIA's HGX platform based on their Hopper and Ampere GPU architectures was the primary driven here. But obviously, NVIDIA also has kind of their networking solution. The networking market was up 94% from a year ago and up 85 sequentially, primarily on strong growth in their infinite band structure to support, obviously, their HGX platform. Like I mentioned, the gaming revenue was up 22% year over year, and it was up 11% sequentially as they are kind of normalizing on inventory levels. Professional visualization was down 24%, but up 28% sequentially, again, mainly because of inventory levels. The one that really interested me a little bit today was the automotive market. Even though the automotive market is such a small portion of this company's total revenue, they did see a sequential decrease, and the primary reason here was because in overall auto demand, particularly in China, was much lower. Now, if we take a closer look at their balance sheet, some great information here. They did mention that they had roughly $16 billion in cash and cash equivalents and marketable securities. They do mention that they did kind of pay back a little bit of debt. Now, if we take a closer look at inventory, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Inventory was $4.3 billion. Another thing, purchase commitments and obligations on inventory and capacity was $11.15 billion, and prepaid supply agreements were $3.8 billion. So this is money that they usually have to pay TSMC or some other partners as they are building huge inventory levels. And we can see that right now they seem to have a lot of demand because they're paying their partners a lot of money, and they mentioned their commitment increase largely reflect their long-term supply needs for data center products. So right off the bat, we could see that NVIDIA did get a nice amount of capacity, and they're making sure they're getting, they're paying for that capacity because they have so much supply. They have so much demand that they definitely need to meet up with all the supply that they're getting right now. Some other things that I found pretty interesting is, look, cash flow from operating activities was $6.3 billion. It was up from $1.2 billion a year ago and roughly $2.9 billion a quarter ago, obviously mainly driven by higher revenue. But we can see cash flow. This company, this quarter, made more cash flow than the company made in revenue the past quarter or about a quarter ago, right? So I think that's insane how much this company's cash flow from operations has increased. I do believe that's all I have to say about the company. I mean, they did meet expectations. They gave a crazy guidance, and I know that's why investors are super excited. Like I mentioned, later today or later tomorrow, I will be doing earnings overview based on the Q&A session. I do believe we could learn a lot about them from the Q&A session. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the thumbs up. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.